Welcome back. This week we're discussing hearing loss, and joining us now is Diane Doak, the Executive Director of Beginnings NC. And Diane, we've been talking a bit about kids, and we have a wonderful program here in North Carolina where we get our children that are born in our hospitals here right away. But we're a pretty popular state. A lot of people move here. So for parents who might be watching and wondering, are there signs that they might be able to pick up on?
Certainly. Actually, about 50% of the children that have hearing loss, it's not identified at birth. So it's not uncommon for a child to either have a progressive loss that they develop as an older child, or, as you say, people moving in. So the signs to look for primarily would be a child who is not attending to things you say. Typically we think these kids are ignoring us, but they're probably not really hearing. Or kids that don't get the joke. If you have a child who is not understanding puns or is not always laughing when other kids are laughing, they may not be hearing those subtle cues, especially in puns. And finally, kids that are struggling in school. If you have a child who's working as hard as they can and they come home exhausted and they're still not getting the language in math, very likely they could have a hearing loss.
So what should parents do at that point? Because you can ask the kid, right? The child, but they won't know because you hear what you hear.
You hear what you hear. So if you ask the child, did you hear me? Their answer is yes.
Yes.
Did you ask, do you hear what I said? Their answer is yes. But if you rephrase it and say, what did I tell you? And they're not repeating back to you those things that you actually said, that's a better indicator of a loss. But what you can do is start with your pediatrician. They can do very informal screenings in the pediatrician's office. You
know, in the last segment we briefly touched on the technology today, and you mentioned 3 in particular. Can we go back and revisit that and get a little more specific on it? So what are the options available?
Well, the first thing that we would try would be a hearing aid, and that really just makes all the sounds louder. With the digital sounds, we can program it exactly for that child's hearing loss. So high frequency sounds or low frequency sounds can be programmed to just be louder where they need to be. These digital hearing aids can get rid of some of the background noise. They can kind of focus the sounds in different directions with microphones. So they're very, very good at helping a child who just needs louder sounds getting to their ear with the hearing aids.
Well, those are very expensive, though.
They're very expensive. We're fortunate in North Carolina that for children under 3, we have a funding source for first set of hearing aids. And for over 3 through 22, we are required for North Carolina-based insurance companies to provide a set of hearing aids for each affected ear every 36 months.
Well, that's terrific.
So that is very good.
So hearing aid would be the first step.
First step.
And it's, as you say, it does boost the sound. And for a lot of kids, maybe that's all you need, but we have a lot of kids who obviously need more help. So what's the next step?
There's 2 types of implanted hearing aids. The first is called a BAHA, or a bone-anchored hearing aid, and that actually is implanted in the bone, and that's for kids who have problems with the middle ear, the eardrum, or the ear canal. And so we bypass that whole part of the hearing process and go right to the cochlea. So that is one kind of implanted hearing aid.
So how does that, I don't know any of that. I flunked out of med school. So what will they actually hear? And now this is implanted right in the bone. Will they hear as someone who doesn't have the
sounds they hear will be as close to what you and I hear as possible, because we're not affecting the nerves. We're simply taking the sound from out here and moving it to the organ of hearing, or the cochlea.
That's amazing. And then the next step, which I guess at this point would be the last option at this point.
It is a cochlear implant. And that is an implant that we insert electrodes actually into the cochlea, which is the organ of hearing. And we use electrical impulses instead of sound. So the sound goes into a processor, it's converted to electrical impulses. Those impulses are picked up by the nerve and taken to the brain. And so with training, the children can hear what you and I are hearing.
It will sound the same to them?
It will sound the same to them.
That is amazing.
It starts out sounding different, but their brain, your brain,
will adapt.
Can adapt.
Unbelievable. Now, tell me again about Beginnings NC. How are you funded? I know that every organization always needs more money. So let's start there, and what events you might have that people can help you out with that funding.
Well, our primary funding source is a grant with the state of North Carolina. So we're paid to actually provide this service to all our families. But we're also not for profit. So we do some solicitation, we do fundraisers, and our biggest fundraiser of the year is coming up on April 5th. It's our annual spring gala, and it's the Umstead in Cary. So we're hoping to have a big crowd there and support what we do across the state.
Well, let me ask you this. We've got about a minute or so left. You've been doing this a while, and you see parents when they first come in, and you see them then when they're on their way, and you say, adios. What kind of change do you see in people, you know, in regards to their confidence and their whole attitude?
We love to see the older children that start out very, very insecure, and they get their technology. We teach them how to be assertive, and we have kids that speak at our galas. We have kids that go to college and become professionals in the field. So we see these kids go from being introverted to being very outspoken, good advocates for themselves.
I can understand why you've been doing this a while. That's got to be very satisfying.
It's very satisfying.
How can folks get a hold of you if they need you?
Best way is our website. It's www.ncbegin.org.
It's so nice of you to join us.
Thank you
so
for having
much.
me.
Thank you for talking with us, Diane. We really appreciate it. And for all of our guests for joining us and sharing their stories about hearing loss. We hope you enjoyed learning more about this topic. And if you'd like to view previous episodes, you can visit RaleighCW.com and myrdctv.com. And thank you for watching Community Matters. We'll see you next week.